You ever buy something dumb just because it made you smile? That's exactly what happened when I spotted this spinner. I was at this local garden shop, just vibing and looking for some mulch or something equally boring, when I saw it, this colorful, swirling, hypnotic little wind spinner shaped like a sunflower had a disco party with a rainbow. It was spinning gracefully in the breeze like it knew it was the Beyoncé of lawn decor. $12.99. Boom. Sold. I brought it home, stuck it in the corner of my front yard, and didn't think twice. It was peaceful. Cheerful. Harmless. At least, that's what I thought. Cut to 2 days later. I'm sitting on my porch drinking iced tea like a responsible adult when I see the HOA president, Karen, yes, that's her real name, I swear, walking by with the energy of someone who's late for a very important meeting, with Satan. She slows down in front of my yard, tilts her head, and stares at the spinner like it just insulted her haircut. And then she takes out her little notepad. Now, this woman lives for violations. She probably dreams in HOA bylaws. I've seen her write someone up for having their trash can out for 4 extra minutes. One time, she filed a complaint because a Halloween skeleton was too lifelike. It was plastic. But anyway. A day after her dramatic sidewalk staring contest with my spinner, I get the letter. The tone? Straight up courtroom drama. Dear resident, it has come to our attention that you have installed a spinning decorative fixture in your front yard. This item is highly distracting and does not align with the community's aesthetic standards. Please remove it within 72 hours to avoid further action. Aesthetic standards? It's a spinner, not a flamethrower. I laughed. I genuinely thought it was a prank. Spoiler, it was not. I even asked my neighbor, Greg, who mows his lawn shirtless and owns a pink garden gnome wearing sunglasses, Greg, the unofficial king of neighborhood oddities, what he thought. Greg looked at the spinner, shrugged, and said, "Kind of fun. My dog barked at it once, but he also barked at a watermelon, so clearly, it wasn't just me thinking this was a non-issue. But Karen was on a mission. The next morning, I caught her with a measuring tape. Measuring the height of the spinner. Like she was inspecting a missile silo. I don't even know if she was authorized to do that, but she looked like someone cosplaying as the fun police, so I didn't interrupt. She scribbled something down and walked off dramatically, as if she had just uncovered a secret code in a Dan Brown novel. Later that evening, I got another letter. This time it had words in bold and italics. Serious stuff. The HOA claimed that the spinner posed a potential hazard to drivers due to its reflective surface and constant movement. And get this, was contributing to an increase in distracted driving incidents. What? Was my spinner hypnotizing people like a Jedi mind trick? Was Karen just mad she couldn't unsee it? Either way, I couldn't believe we had just entered DEFCON 1 over a garden decoration. Honestly, I started to enjoy the absurdity of it all. I began checking on the spinner every morning like it was a pet. Gave it a name, Spinny McCoilface. I even installed a little solar light under it so it glowed gently at night. Tasteful. Elegant. And yet, the HOA doubled down. Another neighbor, Debbie, told me she overheard Karen at a board meeting saying that my spinner was casting glints of light into nearby homes and potentially endangering peace of mind. Debbie then proceeded to laugh so hard she spilled her mimosa, which I feel like proves my point. Anyway, the whole thing started getting attention. People walked by my house and commented on it. Cute spinner! Love the colors! Does it come in blue? Some kids even danced around it once. I was starting to think I should be charging admission. But instead of admitting defeat, the HOA sent me a final warning letter, this one featuring my actual property photo with the spinner circled like a suspect in a police lineup. They included a copy of the community guidelines where, surprise surprise, there was nothing specific about wind spinners. Just vague nonsense like, decor must align with the agreed-upon look of the neighborhood. Which basically means, whatever Karen says. That's when I realized, this wasn't just about the spinner. It was about control. Karen wanted to make an example out of me. I was her glittery little scapegoat. A cautionary tale for anyone who dared express themselves with color. And that's when I had the thought. If they think this is distracting, just wait. Okay. So picture this. I'm sitting on my couch, eating leftover tacos, watching reruns of Judge Judy, when I get a knock on the door. Not a friendly neighbor knock either. This was a "we know what you did" knock. You know the kind. The kind that says I have a clipboard and I'm not afraid to use it. I open the door, and standing there is none other than Karen. Her face is set to maximum judgment mode, lips pursed like she just smelled something foul, and she's holding what looks like a manila folder of doom. "Good afternoon," she says in that voice people use when they don't actually want you to have a good afternoon. "Hey, Karen," I say, taco in hand. "I'm here to formally deliver a notice regarding your spinning contraption," she says, like she can't even bring herself to say "wind spinner." I swear she said it like I had installed a rotating satellite dish broadcasting pirate radio from my lawn. She hands me the folder. I flip it open. Inside? A full-on report. I'm talking printed pictures of the spinner taken at different times of the day. There was even one labeled 11:32 a.m. Spinner glare reflects into 2436 Elmwood's window. It looked like something from a government surveillance file. I couldn't believe it. They were tracking the reflection patterns. But wait, it gets better. They included a statement from a neighbor, who remained anonymous, of course, claiming they had to swerve their car because the spinner flashed in their eyes like a mini strobe light. Another said it gave their dog anxiety. One claimed their child stared at it for 10 minutes straight and wouldn't blink. Like, what is this, a wind spinner or a cursed object from a horror movie? Apparently, Spinny McQuirlface was now a public menace. The HOA labeled it a visual hazard. At this point, I'm genuinely impressed. It's like they were trying to get my little spinner banned under the Geneva Convention. So I asked Karen, "Have there been any actual accidents caused by it?" She blinked. "No, but we're being proactive." Oh, proactive. That magical word people use when they want to ruin your day in advance. I tried reasoning with her. I even offered to move the spinner to the backyard or find a less reflective one. But no. Karen said, and I quote, "We can't allow items that invite distractions. Next thing you know, people will be putting up inflatable dragons." For the record, I would absolutely put up an inflatable dragon if provoked. Anyway, I told her I'd think about it. But I didn't go inside and sulk. Oh no. I called Greg. You remember Greg, shirtless lawnmower guy with the pink sunglasses gnome? Yeah, Greg's kind of a legend. When I told him what happened, he laughed so hard he dropped his can of beer. Then he said the most dangerous sentence in the English language. "You know what would be hilarious?" 15 minutes later, we were sketching ideas on a pizza box. Wind-powered sculptures. Giant lawn mobiles. Maybe even a flamingo on a weather vane. The ideas were wild, borderline illegal, and somehow all beautiful. But one idea kept spinning, pun intended, around my head, a windmill. Not just any windmill. I'm talking a fully functional, spinning blade, borderline Amish-looking beast of a windmill. Would it be ridiculous? Absolutely. Would it make Karen's head explode? Hopefully. So I started doing research. Turns out, there's a whole community of backyard engineers who build windmills for fun. Some use them for pumping water, others for actual power generation. But all of them had one thing in common. They were huge, they spun, and they were awesome. I found a guy online who builds custom windmills. I emailed him. "Hey man, I need a windmill. Big, functional, preferably intimidating. Can pay in cash and or fresh-baked cookies." He responded the same day with, "You're either insane or my favorite new client. Let's build something epic." We were in business. Now, during this planning phase, Karen must have sensed something in the air. Like a pigeon sensing a storm. Because suddenly, I started getting random reminders from the HOA, things like, "Your trash can must be stored out of public view," and Your grass is slightly above the 2.5-inch height limit. One letter even said, Please ensure your male flag is not left raised unnecessarily. I mean, what are we doing here? Clearly, she was trying to rattle me. Break my spirit. Get me to bow out. But she didn't know me. I don't do bowing out. I do windmills. In the meantime, I kept the spinner spinning. I even polished it so it gleamed extra hard on sunny days. Pure pettiness, I admit, but hey, when you're being treated like a villain, you might as well lean into it. The whole thing was reaching sitcom levels of absurdity. Neighbors were starting to take sides. I overheard two people arguing over whether wind art was a real thing. One guy said, I don't mind it, it's better than looking at Todd's creepy angel statue. To which Todd responded, It's a cherub, Brad. Chaos. Beautiful chaos. But while everyone else was arguing, planning, or spying, I was prepping. Because the moment the last part of that windmill arrived, I was going full send. And if they thought my little spinner was too distracting, well, they hadn't seen anything yet. Okay, so you know how some people get a passive-aggressive note and think, maybe I should back off. Yeah. I'm not built like that. If anything, it only fuels me. So after Karen and her clipboard of doom told me my humble little wind spinner was too distracting, I did what any reasonable person would do. I doubled down. Actually, scratch that. I went full supervillain with a Pinterest board. My windmill guy, let's call him Dale, because that was his real name, sent over a rough sketch. It was beautiful. 4 massive blades, wood frame, slightly rustic but still menacing, like something out of a post-apocalyptic HGTV special. He even asked if I wanted to include a backup battery for actual power generation. I replied, Dale, I want this thing to spin so hard the HOA president's eyebrows flutter in the breeze. He was in. The parts started arriving piece by piece. First the support beams, then the rotating mechanism, and finally, the blades. These things were massive. Like, don't stand too close or you'll get sliced into next week. Massive. I had to get a buddy with a flatbed truck just to haul them onto my lawn. And here's the kicker. I didn't tell anyone what I was building. Not my nosy next-door neighbor who always watches from behind the blinds. Not Todd, who once offered to help and then just stood around drinking lemonade. Not even Greg, who I usually tell everything. Nope. I went stealth mode. I set up temporary fencing, labeled it garden renovation, and wore a big floppy hat so people would think I was doing some kind of organic planting thing. Karen did stop by once during the build. I was in the middle of hammering together a support structure when she leaned over the fence and said, What are you working on? I smiled like a Disney villain and said, Just something peaceful. She narrowed her eyes and walked off muttering something about bylaws. She had no idea. Anyway, fast forward to Saturday. The day of the great reveal. My masterpiece was done. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and my windmill, oh my beautiful, glorious windmill, was standing tall and proud in the middle of my front yard like it owned the zip code. It was taller than my roof. Let me paint the picture. 18 feet of handcrafted spinning power, finished in a tasteful deep red, with gleaming metallic blades that sparkled like a disco ball in broad daylight. I added a little weathercock on top just to be fancy. And because I couldn't help myself, I installed a small Bluetooth speaker that played wind sound effects when it turned. Was that necessary? Absolutely not. Was it petty? You bet. Was it hilarious? Oh yes. I called Greg and told him to come over. He showed up, took one look at it, and screamed, Dude! This is insane! I love it! Then he did a slow clap. My heart swelled with pride. Within 10 minutes, half the street had come outside. People gathered on sidewalks. Kids started running around it like it was some kind of sacred suburban monument. One little girl asked if it was a giant flower machine. Another guy asked if it generated electricity. Technically, yes, but mostly it powered a string of fairy lights and charged my phone. And then, Karen appeared. She walked out of her house, looked at the windmill, and I swear, you could see the HOA rules scrolling through her brain like a malfunctioning computer. She stormed across the street, lips pursed, eyes locked on me like I had just planted a Waffle House on her tulips. "What is that?" she hissed. "A windmill," I said. "Fully functional. It's enormous." "Thank you," I said proudly. She blinked. "You can't just build a structure like that without approval." "Oh, but I did," I said, pulling out a folder from behind a lawn gnome. "According to the bylaws, Section 14, Paragraph C, I'm allowed to install environmentally beneficial structures under 10 feet. This one?" I tapped the windmill's base. "The windmill is 10 feet. The decorative rooster and antenna on top don't count toward the structure's height." Her jaw tightened. "But it's spinning. It's even louder than the spinner." "That's the wind, Karen," I said. "Can't regulate nature." Now, at this point, I should mention something I did, maybe not entirely in the spirit of peaceful protest. Remember how she said the spinner was too distracting? Well, I bought a projector. And every night, from 8 to 10 p.m., I projected a swirling kaleidoscope of colors onto the windmill as it turned, turning it into the trippiest nighttime lawn display in the neighborhood. Karen called it optical terrorism. Greg called it a vibe. I called it art. But here's the unexpected twist: people loved it. Folks who normally avoided talking to me were now stopping by just to take pictures. Some even brought lawn chairs and snacks. Kids wanted to do science projects about wind power. One guy asked if I could make his shed spin. I politely declined. And the HOA? Well, they were clearly losing their minds behind the scenes. I started getting emails with subject lines like, "Windmill considered inappropriate lawn decor. Please remove rotating projector imagery. Community aesthetic survey, urgent response requested." They even called for an emergency HOA meeting. I wasn't invited, but Greg, bless his lawnmower soul, live-streamed it from his phone while pretending to check his email. Apparently, they were trying to figure out how to classify the windmill. Is it a sculpture? A structure? An eyesore? A religious symbol? Yes, that came up. Someone said it might be part of a wind cult. In the end, they decided they need to conduct a formal evaluation. And I was like, cool. I'll conduct a formal wind measurement in the meantime. The best part? I installed a tiny weather station at the top of the windmill, and I started uploading daily wind reports to the neighborhood Facebook page. I called it Karen's Breeze Watch. Her comment under the first post was just the emoji, pouting face. Perfection. So yeah, they said my little spinner was too distracting? I built the world's most majestic, LED-lit, HOA-approved tornado on a stick and turned it into a neighborhood event. And I was just getting started. It finally happened. I was halfway through mowing a smiley face into my lawn when I got the letter. Official-looking envelope, HOA seal, printed in Comic Sans. I wish I was kidding. Cease and desist. Apparently, Karen and her minions of misery had convened a super serious HOA emergency tribunal, complete with folding chairs and probably gluten-free lemon bars, and had unanimously decided that my windmill was a disruptive visual nuisance. A visual nuisance, y'all. I burst out laughing so hard I dropped the mower and nearly took off my own shoe. The letter claimed the windmill caused traffic slowdowns, reduced neighborhood home value perception, and violated the undefined spirit of the HOA guidelines. That last part got me. Undefined spirit. What is this, a haunted HOA? It concluded with a 72-hour deadline to remove all rotating structures and any associated lighting, sound, or projection components. Basically, they wanted me to erase every trace of joy from my lawn like it was a crime scene. Now, if this had been a normal neighbor dispute, say, about fence height or noisy pets, I might have considered a compromise. But this wasn't that. This was about wind. This was about freedom. This was about not letting a woman named Karen dictate my rotational lifestyle. So, naturally, I responded in the most diplomatic, mature way possible. I invited them over. Yep. I hand-delivered personalized invitations to every member of the HOA board for what I titled The Windmill Experience, a guided tour of peaceful, eco-friendly rotational art. Dress code, business casual. Mood tense but whimsical. I even printed tiny brochures with a map of my yard and tiny trivia facts like, did you know? This windmill generates enough electricity to charge a phone, a drone, or your HOA president's emotional support humidifier. Spinning equals winning. The day of the tour arrived, and I went full Disney mode. I wore a safari vest. I made laminated visitor passes. Greg stood at the entrance with a clipboard and said things like, have you spun with us before? Karen showed up first, looking like she had swallowed a lemon made of rage. Behind her came the vice president, Ted, a man with the personality of beige wallpaper, and two others who always nodded at everything Karen said like wind-up parrots. I greeted them with a megawatt smile. Welcome! Would you like some complimentary pinwheels to get in the spirit? Karen blinked. This is ridiculous. Ridiculously informative. I corrected, handing her a pamphlet. I led them around the yard, pointing out different features. This is the Eco Turbine Center. Here's where the windmill stores energy in a backup battery. That tiny solar panel? Just for show, it powers the squirrel cam. Karen squinted. Squirrel cam? 24/7 live footage. The squirrels love the windmill. They think it's a friend. Ted muttered something about bylaws, and I redirected them to the interactive projection zone, aka the spot where I projected rainbow swirls onto the windmill at night. I had even set up a little demo using a pocket projector and some fog for drama. That's not even wind-related, Karen shouted. Sure it is, I said. It's a wind aesthetic. She turned beet red. This is mockery. No, mockery is what your bylaws do to common sense. At this point, Greg chimed in helpfully with, would you all like to try the spin simulator? And motioned to the lawn chair he had placed in front of a fan blowing at full speed while playing wind sound effects from a speaker. Ted sat down. Karen did not. Now here's where it gets even better. Midway through the tour, a couple neighbors wandered over. Then a few more. Soon we had a whole crowd. They weren't even invited, they just heard there was windmill drama, and didn't want to miss the show. One guy brought popcorn. A kid had binoculars. Someone set up a folding chair and yelled, "This is better than Netflix." I leaned toward Karen and said, "See? It's bringing the community together." Her response? "We are filing a formal complaint with the city zoning board." Ah, yes, the nuclear option. I nodded solemnly and said, "I understand. Just let me show you the piece de resistance." I led them to the back of the windmill, where I had installed my final touch, a hand-painted wooden sign that read, "Property of the HOA High-Octane Aerodynamics Division." Karen gasped. "That's a mock HOA division?" "Not at all," I said innocently. "It's just a little wind-powered wordplay." She stormed off. I think she tripped over a garden gnome on the way out, but I'll have to check the squirrel cam footage to be sure. The best part? Later that evening, my neighbor Patricia, you know, the one who bakes incredible cookies and has the loudest sneezes on the block, came by and whispered, "Thank you. This place has been so boring since the community chili cook-off got banned. You made things fun again." And just like that, the windmill wasn't just a petty act of resistance anymore. It was a symbol. A spinning, shining, wildly unnecessary symbol of pushing back against the soul-sucking bureaucracy that thinks lawn decor needs to be beige and emotionless. The HOA might have had their cease and desist letter. But I had 18 feet of spinning power, a Bluetooth speaker, community support, and an online following thanks to Greg uploading the entire tour to TikTok with the caption, "HOA tries to cancel wind, fails spectacularly." Spoiler alert, it went viral. Karen was now a meme. And I wasn't done yet. It started with one video. Greg, being the internet-loving legend that he is, uploaded a clip of Karen storming off during our Windmill experience tour, captioned with, "When the HOA meets a windmill they can't control, dashing away, rolling on the floor laughing." Within an hour, it had 30,000 views. By sunset, it had crossed 2 million. By the next morning, I was officially the Windmill guy, trending on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and somehow LinkedIn? Shout out to Kevin from Idaho for the connection request. People weren't just watching, they were rooting for me. I got messages like, "Bro, I don't even have a yard, but now I want a windmill in my apartment. You are the suburban Batman we didn't know we needed. I watched your video while hiding from my own HOA. Respect." Even my aunt in Wisconsin called me. She said, "I saw you on TV. I told my knitting group, that's my nephew." Then she asked if I could build her a windmill that dispenses hot cocoa. Meanwhile, Karen was having a full-blown PR meltdown. First, she sent out an HOA-wide email titled, "Misinformation about Windmill Incident," trying to explain her side. Unfortunately, the screenshots of her yelling, "This is mockery," didn't exactly help her case. Then she tried to issue a public statement, filmed from her front porch, wearing pearls and rage, but the comments section got disabled in under 5 minutes. Too many gifs of spinning things. And me? Oh, I leaned all the way in. I upgraded the windmill again. Added color-changing LED strips that lit up in patterns, red, white, and blue on patriotic days, rainbow for pride, and once, just for fun, flashing HOA who? In Morse code. I also started giving nightly windmill shows. Neighbors brought lawn chairs. Kids brought snacks. Someone even brought a bouncy castle one night. It turned into a full suburban festival. Karen called the cops. Twice. Both times the officers arrived, saw a bunch of people peacefully vibing with lawn lights and light jazz, and left with snow cones. One officer actually tipped his hat and said, "Impressive engineering." Karen lost it. At the next HOA meeting, which I attended wearing a custom "Windmills for Freedom" t-shirt, she tried to pass an emergency motion to have my windmill removed via community safety clause. The motion failed 4-1. Turns out the other board members were secretly fans. Ted, the human manila folder himself, even said, "My daughter's obsessed with your videos. She asked if she can do her science fair project on wind power now." Karen stood up, announced she was taking a temporary leave for her mental health, and stormed out. I gave her a standing ovation. Alone. It was beautiful. The real twist, though, came 2 days later. I was working on installing a wind-powered bubble machine, because why not, when a black SUV pulled up. Out stepped a guy in a polo shirt that said, "Local News 7. And behind him? A full camera crew. They wanted to do a feature on the homeowner who fought the HOA with wind. Apparently, my story was being pitched as a segment in a series called Weird But Wonderful America. They interviewed me right there in front of the windmill. I told them about the whole thing: Karen, the spinner, the cease and desist, the accidental lawn festival. At one point I said, "What started as a tiny act of rebellion turned into a neighborhood celebration of nonconformity. Plus, it's fun to mess with people who take mailbox height too seriously." The anchor guy laughed so hard he almost dropped his mic. When the segment aired, it was pure magic. Slow-mo shots of the windmill spinning under sunset. Close-ups of Karen glaring from behind her curtains. They caught that on the squirrel cam footage, bless Greg. Interviews with neighbors saying things like, "It made the community fun again." And then, boom, the video blew up even more. National attention. People started tagging me in windmill art, windmill cakes, and a very cursed windmill tattoo, whoever did that. I hope you're okay. I even got an email from a wind energy company asking if I wanted to collaborate on promotional content. I told them, "Only if we can make a windmill shaped like a middle finger." They replied, "We'll discuss." But here's the best part. The HOA sent one final letter. No cease and desist. No legal threat. Just a simple, typed note that read, We acknowledge the community's enthusiastic support for your structure and will not pursue further action. Please consider dimming the lights after 10 p.m. It was signed by Ted. I framed it right next to the squirrel cam monitor. I dimmed the lights. Sometimes. Look, the truth is, I didn't set out to go viral. I didn't mean to start a movement. I just wanted to spin some wind and mind my business. But when the HOA tried to kill my joy, I turned it into a party. And now? My windmill stands tall, proud, and spinning like it just don't care. Tourists come by to take selfies. The local ice cream truck parks near it because kids gather here now. A DJ asked if he could do a wind rave in my yard next summer. And every time that wind picks up, I smile. Because I know, somewhere in her house, Karen is trying to watch TV while hearing the horror of my beautiful, glorious, rotating revenge. Spite never felt so breezy.